Hello and welcome to the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. This week you are joined by myself and Dave, fresh off the mountain, where Dave was having some calls in the middle of the day with our investors about a shift that we're making in our strategy. So it got us inspired about when is it time to change your strategy, what we would call your business model, and when is it time to solve the problem that's really presenting itself so that you can take the path of least resistance to growing your business and taking an easier route to creating more freedom. So without further ado, here's myself and Dave in the French Alps. Hello!
Hello!
And hello again from the French Alps. This is recorded in January 2024, and yet again we've come back from the slopes feeling inspired to record another podcast episode. Beautiful bluebird day out on the slopes today. And so today's topic of conversation is, when is it time to change your strategy? What we would actually call a business model. So whether you are doing, HMOs or commercial conversions or single lets, normally people call those strategies. I think you should be calling those business models, because the strategy is all of the plan that fits around that business model. So I feel we have for one, what sparked this topic of conversation was because we're in the process of shifting our business model at the moment, based on the market having changed and things having changed. This will be the first time in 7 years that we have changed it.
Yeah, well, we were just up the top of the mountain, weren't we? Having a conversation with the investors on a new business model, kind of a shift of everything. And it's really exciting. It's really cool. I think we've got more energy around it than we've had for a while. And you're right, that realisation that this moment when we're shifting is the first time in the last 7 years we shifted. And suddenly thinking, but we spend a lot of time
kicking people's ass saying, don't change your goddamn business model yet.
I'll say it a bit nicer. We spend a lot of time trying to keep people focused on the same thing.
Yes. But quite often it needs a firmer hand than that to keep people focused, because I think it's an industry full of shiny pennies and sexy opportunities, and I think most people's natural reaction is to flit to something new far sooner than it's time to. And we've basically made a whole business out of keeping people focused, because it's hard.
It's really hard, and you can see why, because there we are. We've been doing a model for 7 years. It is hard. It's not worn us down, but it becomes less exciting. And then when you do something new, you're like, oh wow, a new energy, new bubbles, and suddenly you've got this new motivation, and it kind of draws you. And I can see why it's hard to stay on track. If you don't have something helping to keep you there.
So I guess maybe we should first of all, why should we stay on track? Let's just cover that first of all before we go anywhere else. I think the reason to stay on track is everything gets easier the longer you stay on track. And particularly because most people are in property because it's a great way to make money. But if you are constantly flitting between different things, it is harder to make money. You can still, you could be a real hustler doing lots of different stuff,
yes,
but it is very hard to make good money whilst not working all of the time doing lots of different things. So for us, it's that intersection of being able to be in property whilst my whole life not being all about being in property, about being in the ski slope or being on the golf course or having a lovely dinner with you, it's that intersection of those two things.
So I'd say that's basically making a business scalable and a business that you can step back from. If you want to be scalable and step back from it, you got to focus, because otherwise how do you create replicable processes? How do you make sure that you've learned the mistakes and you can just keep improving something to the point that it can just work smoothly? All of this requires you to go for quite a while through the crap, through the mistakes, through the errors, and through the things that go wrong, to work out and tweak it and refine it to the point that it is doable by someone else. And you're right, there's plenty of great hustlers out there. I'm always really impressed with them when I meet someone who's just doing a bit of this, doing a bit of that, and doing it really well.
And clearly making a lot of money from it. But they're working hard.
But they're doing it. It's all them. And I'm like, well, yeah, great, well done for you. But
and if they love it, and I think quite often people who are hustling in that way, they do actually love it.
You're right.
And that is different. But I think those are very rare people.
To be able to love it ongoing for a very long time.
Yes, and to love it, to be making great money for it, and to just keep wanting to do it that way, even though you're working quite a lot of hours. Yeah,
very important. So for most of us mere mortals, we do actually want to set something up that just works really well, and then we can slowly step back from. That's usually the goal, and the main goal of most people who come to work with us, right?
Yes. Freedom
from the business as well. So there we go. So that's the aim, right? And for us, we've noticed that focus is a massive mantra of ours, because you have to be focused to get to that freedom quicker.
Okay.
Good.
So, what do we see in terms of the challenges of staying focused? Because it's quite incredible how hard it is to stay focused when stuff gets tough.
Well, I've seen it. It depends on what phase people are in their business.
Oh, good one, go on.
So I think let's start with the earlier phase.
Yeah.
Grass is greener, shiny penny syndrome.
Yeah, just that slight delusion phase where all you've heard is what they say on the stages at networking events, the shiny marketing material, and it all seems easy, you know? Oh God, I could do SA and make this much, or I could do HMOs and make this much. It's just a simple 3-step system. Everything seems so easy
and super profitable.
Yeah. That you're like, just want to grab at stuff, and it seems hard to choose because it all seems easy and sexy.
Yeah, and you look at but it doesn't quite all seem easy and sexy, because you look at what you're doing.
Yes, okay.
And you say, oh, what I'm doing.
But that's when the reality starts. That's
really hard, right?
Slightly into the later phases of the first phase, where it's like you have had a massive shiny penny of loads of stuff, and you start to choose one thing, and then you realise that wasn't what you thought it was. But you don't then think that, oh gosh, everything must be harder than the marketing world is telling me. You think the thing that I've chosen is accidentally harder than everything else.
Yeah, that one person missold me.
So the bubbles popped in just that particular area, but all the other bubbles look frothy and exciting
cool.
still.
So you're like, so that's what you're saying is before you've even chosen your first model. That's the earliest stage. You've got to trial something out, and it's always harder than you think.
Yep.
Always, across the board. And if you then immediately say, oh no, this is really hard, maybe that other thing that person was saying on the stage looks easier, I'm going to go to that. Then you're never going to get anywhere. You can't even get off the ground.
Yep.
So that's phase one. And that's pure shiny penny and believing that the person on the stage is telling the truth,
which they are telling a version of the truth. Yeah. There's very few people who are standing up there telling a complete lie.
That's true.
But it's a version of the truth, which, you know, someone can't stand up and tell you their whole life story there and all the challenges. So it's just one high level overview about why that thing is great.
Oh, I tell you right now, property is a fantastic business that makes you loads of money if you do it really well and stick with it.
Yeah.
That does not mean it's not hard.
Yeah.
And that if you follow a simple process, you can find a replicable way to do it fairly quickly.
Simple processes can still be hard.
Exactly. So yes, so that's the very first stage. Then let's go on to the next stage. You've chosen your business model. You've started getting it going. Say you've bought 3 or 4 single lets.
Yep.
Maybe coming to your 5th, 6th, 7th. And what happens then?
Oh, there's a lot of problems, Dave. And I can't find, I need to do a lot more of these single lets. I'm just quoting many people here, summary. I've got to do a lot more of these things to really make me financially free. And I can't find enough of them. Or I can't, they're not sexy enough to investors, so I can't raise enough finance. So really, I can't do single lets anymore.
So what we're encountering here is problems with the model. Not necessarily saying it's too hard specifically, but
that is what people probably say. They're like, it's too hard, it doesn't work, is how people come and sit in front of us in a session. And then we're like, okay, tell me what is actually happening. And after much digging, you get to the sourcing is hard, I can't find enough deals, and I'm struggling to find investors for those deals. Normally comes down to one of those two things. And
so what we're seeing there is problems that are going to be in any business pretty much.
Yep.
I mean, I'd say 90-95% of businesses are going to have these problems in the property world.
At some point, at least.
Yeah, at some point. And so therefore the job is not, look for something else that's sold, look for a whole different business model and start from the beginning again. The job is
because you will basically be like, let's do this new other thing.
Yeah.
And then 6 to 18 months later, I'm annoyed about the same thing again.
There's not enough of them.
I haven't got enough investors. I can't find enough deals. Okay, maybe new model.
So that's it. The job is not to change the model.
Yep.
It's to solve that problem. I think that's one of the things we really see at that phase when working with people who have got something off the ground and it's up and running, it's working, and you can see it's worked well historically, and they want to shift, and you're just like, no, you're trying to solve the problem. You're not solving the problem.
You're not clear on the problem.
Well, maybe that's it, yeah.
You're not clear on the problem, so you're trying to solve another problem, and you're trying to solve a problem that seems a sexier problem to you to solve than how do I find investors, the right investors, or how do I find more of these deals?
Yeah, I guess I would say it's not that they're not clear on the problem, because after some digging, you definitely get to it. But what I would say is that whilst to get into a business, you usually have to have quite an open mindset and quite a good belief system to get going. It's almost like you get to a point where that gives out and you start to just believe, no, this is impossible. Instead of going into problem solving mode, you start to say, it's just, you hit your limits, your belief system limits, and you start to think, no, people won't want that. I can't find investors for it because no investor would want that. And so, I mean, literally, nearly every time we sit down and say, no, an investor will want this. You just have to find a different type of investor. You've only got one pool, one type. Whether that's, I've got people sitting in front of me saying, all investors that I'm talking to want first charges. It's like, so therefore I have to do
This
a model
model
where
doesn't work.
this model doesn't work because they all require first charges. And I'm like, yeah, but every other person I'm working with is getting investors that don't need first charges. So you've got the wrong pool. So maybe as you
the wrong mindset.
Well, that's the thing. You hit a limit of your mindset where you look at what you're seeing and you can't see the bigger picture.
Yep.
Right? And so therefore you can't see any problem can be solved.
So then you come into like problem solving the specific problem. And I think those of us who are generally starting businesses are, I think you're a bit different to this. Well, I started and you helped to continue it. And
I never had to start a business. No,
Yeah.
no, I have started a business.
This is the difference between the two of us though, right? Because I'm good at starting and I was more of this person that we're discussing here, this flitting between different things. And at first I managed to like hoodwink you into the little scheme of like distraction. And then over time you started to really see the Jackie's just distracted pattern, and you learn how to rein me in. And now I'm actually pretty good at reining myself in generally.
Yes.
Probably 9 times out of 10.
Yes.
And because of what you've taught me through that, I'm now really good at reining other people in because I've had to learn to rein myself in. So I think, but those of us who are the people who start the businesses, we are generally the creative people who are great at starting things. And once it's up and running and it's going and you're just trying to solve the problems to keep it going, we're not so excited by it.
Yeah, and I guess the thing to say there is that if you've made it work, then the problems are solvable, right? If you've actually gotten in there and you've got it up and running, you've started buying properties and it's all working, then the answer in this case is it's not time to change your business model. Nearly nine times out of 10 at least, it's not time to change your business model. It's time to pivot or refine or overcome an obstacle, whatever that might be for that business. Basically, it's go deeper and shift.
Yes.
Don't change entirely at that phase.
You're right, and I'd probably say 99 times out of 100.
Okay, 99 out of 100. Because then there are major things that happen. And let's give an example. Interest rate changes.
Yes.
They can kill a business model.
Yeah.
Just like that, overnight. Your interest goes up by 2-3% overnight, and yes, maybe that is an obstacle that might not be overcomeable. So you have to change. Potentially.
Market goes up by a certain percentage, which means
yields don't work anymore.
The yields don't work anymore. And that's basically the 2 examples where we've had to change, right? So the first, we should come back to the different phases in a minute.
Yeah, don't worry,
really
we'll
good.
get back there.
Our first business model was single lets on the outskirts of southeast London, Belvedere, Erith. Abbeywood-ish. And that was buying properties. God, what's the cheapest? 95k for a 1-bed flat. I think the most expensive was 130.
Yes.
For a flat, and that was then starting to, once we got to refinance, start to hit the upper limits of.
So we started to hit refinance at 160,
I think
170.
Got over 200.
It was just before the 200 mark that it started. Well, the reason we could get to 200 was because we started to do the 1 to 2 bed model. But prior to that, the 1 beds, it's when we hit 1 beds hitting 160, 170, but the rents just weren't high enough for it. So they were the purchase price, they were yielding really well, but it was such a good uplift, which was fantastic for us. But we actually couldn't release the money because there wasn't enough rent.
And I guess this is the downside of investing in an area for high potential capital appreciation, which has always been how we've chosen things, you are going to get to a point where the capital values have got to a point where you basically break the model that you've chosen. Didn't appreciate that the first time. Second time, when we moved our area, we knew it was going to happen, and we basically asked, please universe, may we have 5 good years in this area before it breaks itself again.
But can we talk about the difference between a strategy shift and a pivot?
Oh, go on.
Because what we did was a mixture of both. But when the model stopped working in Southeast London, we had the option of just pivoting. And what I mean by that is find a new area but do everything else the same.
Yes.
That's a pivot, right?
Yes, which was actually the plan. So let's come back to that in a second. So it was in a pivot, which was, we like doing single lets. We actually really like doing the 1 to 2 bed conversions. But this area does the fundamentals of this area in terms of yields, purchase prices, refinance values has broken itself. So let's find a new area with similar fundamentals and move our investing there, which is what we did a whole piece of research about to find that location, which was why we then started investing in Thanet instead. And then there was I don't know, we can debate this.
Well, we had a lot of shiny penny syndrome at that point in time, to be fair, because on our route to Margate, we had considered pretty much every model under the sun, right?
Yeah.
That was our moment that we talk about quite freely, but we spent at least a year looking at commercial conversions, fire damage flats, like developments, whatever it could be. We went through that.
Flapping around,
doing very little in our business.
Doing a hell of a lot for very little reward.
So if we had, looking back on it in hindsight, if we had just realised that it was single lets were great, let's just choose a new area and pivoted, boom, we'd have just got going straight away in a new area. But we didn't. We flapped around. So you're right. We then got to Margate as a good choice, and at that point, then the shiny penny was still there, right? But we curtailed it in enough to say, right, okay, do you know what? All of this commercial conversions, developments, all seem too hard work at this point. Let's focus in on trying to do blocks of flats, where we're basically buying them. Pretty much, they already are blocks of flats at the time. That was the plan. And therefore, we were like, well, it's just basically the same, isn't it? It's a single let, but you're doing more of them in one go. 3 or 4, 5 of them in a go. Simples. That's what it seemed like, okay? And that seemed like a very good pivot for us. But it wasn't until we started doing it that we realised we'd actually had done a model shift, because no one around us was saying, oh yeah, by the way, blocks of flats, it's not just a pivot. There's actually a whole different model there. A lot to learn.
Of stuff that you're going to mess up if you don't know what you're doing.
So we did do a strategy shift accidentally because we thought it was a pivot. We didn't have a mentor at the time who could have explained that to us. And then similarly, we also were still on the track of thinking we would like to do commercial conversions, so we also did do that alongside it at the time.
We should do a whole episode on that commercial conversion.
Yes, that's true. The joyful moment in my life. Anyway, so for us, we could have just done a pivot, but we ended up doing a whole strategy shift.
Because of this distraction process in which we're talking about here. So yeah, that would have been a great pivot.
It would have been a great pivot,
Basically it's an area pivot, carry on doing the same thing. Yeah.
And it would have worked perfectly. And we'd have grown much quicker at that point. But yeah. There we go.
Seems bad, could be good. So maybe let's go back then to the journey through these different phases. So
let's go to the phase where you've got up and running and you want to change, and actually you just need to overcome the problem. Let's go to the next stage. Actually, no, just to finish off at that stage, we've had clients as well where they come to us. They've got it up and running, it's working really well, and they have not hit a problem. So I would say that's the next person, because it's just a moment beyond. You've actually got past all the problems. It's working well, and yet you still want to pivot or change or whatever.
Pourquoi?
And we've had this quite a few times, because it's not exciting enough. They're looking for something more exciting. Something that thrills them. I'm like,
and I guess then the simple question is, do you want to be thrilled, or do you want this financial freedom that you keep banging on about?
Or do you want to be thrilled, or do you want to make lots of money? Because it's literally, you're making a choice at that moment in time to, instead of scale your business, to go back to step one. Because it's not exciting enough.
Makes me so sad. And I guess if really no one comes to me saying, I want more excitement in my life. They say I want more cash flow in my life, or
That's
I want
true.
more time in my life.
So yeah, that's a frustrating one. It's a very big self-sabotage, that moment, right?
Yeah, it
so
is.
just keeping aware of what the motivation is, and knowing that once something's working and you've got it working, you are now at the doorway to freedom. You are literally able to step through, scale it up, and step back, and that's it. Financial
And
freedom.
then there's still time for other stuff, right, on the other side of that. Because if you can get to that business to the point that it's working without your involvement, without much headspace, there is time. And if you want something more exciting, do it then. But just go that bit further to just get it to that point.
Actually, that brings me on to the concept of multiple business models at the same time, right?
Yeah.
This idea of maybe having a primary one and then a second
secondary
one on the
and
side,
a tertiary one.
maybe a third one you're dabbling in. I think the concept of having multiple things is okay, is a general rule. Only if you get one of them working well first. And this is it, right? Get to that doorway, step through it, scale something up so it's hard, it doesn't require much of your time, and you can do that quickly if you really focus on it.
Yep.
And then start looking at the second thing. Don't start it on day one.
It's too much.
It's just too hard.
It's distracting, and it's like, the thing is, the idea of being like, oh, I'll just spend my main bulk of my time doing one thing, and then a little bit on that, and a little bit on that. Sounds like a nice idea, but your brain doesn't work like that. It is a swirling vortex of ideas grabbing at different things, and it's like having lots of tabs open on your computer.
Exactly. You've tripled the amount of stuff going through your own RAM, right? To put a computer metaphor on it. You slow everything down. It's just like too much in the head. You just need to clear that clutter out and focus in on just one thing, and then when a problem comes, you've got enough RAM.
You've got enough
You've got enough RAM
enough
to
processing
power.
speed.
So yeah, and people don't see this. You don't realise.
But you can't see it because you haven't got enough RAM.
Yeah.
Like the less things that I have going on, and I am pretty good. We are pretty good. We have quite a lot of things going on still. The less things I have going on, the clearer my mind is for solving the problems.
Yeah.
It's easier to catch yourself doing ridiculous self-sabotaging things, to be able to step back to solve the problem. Yeah.
Which in the end gets you to your destination faster. Yeah.
With more fun.
Less stress. Okay, great. So that covers the person who stage 3,
wants the
right?
exciting.
Stage 3.
Yeah.
Let's go to stage 4. So stage 4 is where someone has made the business work. They've got the team in place. Pretty much.
They're trying to get the team in place, is what I would say. Like, that's the next level of problems, is you've got a business model that works, and now you're in the process of trying to get yourself out of doing it.
Yes.
Then the next level of problems come with team. Like, same thing, you've got to learn how to hire people, how to delegate, how to step back, how to deal with stuff when it goes wrong.
Quite a lot of that requires a lot of personal development, because I have to say all of us are control freaks. Almost all of us.
And perfectionists.
And perfectionists generally. So handing over a job to someone else and letting go of control is very hard, and very hard to do in a way that also allows you to have oversight and to check in on it. So generally people fall into 2 camps: control freak, who finds it impossible to hand over, or the abdicator. The person who just tells someone else to do it and then just wants
runs for the hills.
Just leave them to it and just never checks in.
And then it's all
And then
just
it all goes-
slowly going to shit. But they don't know, so it feels okay.
And no business can run either way, right? You cannot be the control freak and you cannot be the abdicator. There is a middle ground, and that is a
have to be
learning
the-
curve.
Contabdicator.
Yeah, great.
Oh,
Not
no,
sure
I won't
about
TM
that
one.
But no, that is a skill to learn, and it is a very hard skill to learn. It requires both technical skill, like learning how to do it, but also a lot of mindset and personal development. And if you can do, that takes time. So when you're going through that learning phase,
You're gonna have wobbles.
it's going to be hard.
I watch them. I watch it all the time. People are like, I can't do it. My team are not as good as me. It's all going to shit. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. No. It's not that. This can work, but we just have to, like, okay, why has that team member not done a good job? Why did you have to get involved when you were meant to be on holiday? Like, these are all problems that we've been through, that you have to go through on the route to stepping back from it. So I feel, is there another phase beyond that? You were going to go, the team's in place, then what were you going to say?
No, I think that might have been it. I think
Okay.
you're right. I think you caught me on, like, where the team was at. But I would say that this thing you've just said, the team's not as good as me. Can we just clarify that. At the early stage of business, you have built the business from scratch. You have had the motivating and energy to get it to that point. You've made it work all on your own. When you bring someone in at the small amount of money we can spend, because we're tiny businesses, we are not big businesses able to pay 150, 200 grand salaries. We are not going to find someone as good as us. Like, it's a wonderful idea to just hire someone who is much better than you in that area. And yes, the person you hire will probably be better than you at some things, but they're not necessarily going to be better than you at the job that you need them for.
And they, on all the things that you can do, they are not going to be able to do, because we're actually head cases, the people who build businesses.
Yeah.
Like, you have to just become good at so many different things and throw your hand in, and like, we're weirdos.
Yeah. And also, you're right. So every role in earlier days of business, when you say you're growing it, you've got 1 or 2 team members. Funnily enough, they are having to be jacks of all trade as well, because you can't afford to just have one person doing the one job. Think about a massive business, right? You bring in a member to do a tiny part of the business role of this huge business, and the people at the top, who are the ones that we're like, oh, they're the amazing ones, the directors, right, who are supposed to be better than anyone else and are possibly better than the business owner at what they do. They are literally just the director of finance or just marketing, right? They are skilled at that one thing. So bringing someone into a tiny business and you expecting them to be better than you,
Not gonna happen.
Madness.
And not when you haven't got a good big old salary that you can
Exactly.
pay either. So I think you're right. That first of all, you just got to accept. You've got to learn to harness people's abilities, because everyone does have stuff that they're great at, but not everyone knows what they're great at. And I think that is one of the things that we have done a really good job of, is understanding the people that we're hiring, learning about them, using things like wealth dynamics,
which we're going to do another episode on actually, which will come out in a bit, but that
about
higher level
team.
How to use wealth dynamics with your team, because that's been so powerful for this.
And then and then developing people, because all of this stuff that we're talking about on this podcast about how we hold ourselves back as humans is relevant to the people that you work with as well. And if you can help them to overcome their barriers and help them to become more confident and more skilled at what they do, like, they get better. And I think we have
they'll flourish and they'll enjoy their work, and they will stick with you even at maybe a lower salary, but they'll become better than their salary that you're paying them and help the business grow.
Yep.
That's what you're looking for, but you don't get that on day one.
No.
It just doesn't happen.
So you just got to stick with it. And like, for us, we've put in a lot of time for personal development for our team, for training them up, for testing people out in different roles. Like, Rowena has been in every department in the company, and I think.
And we've had a lot of bad hires.
We've had a lot of bad
A
hires.
lot of people come and gone in our business, and that's just like people who have arrived, and either they haven't worked out because we've asked them to leave, or they haven't worked out just because they've left
didn't like
of their
it,
own accord,
yeah.
didn't like it. And we've had to go through a lot of frogs to get to our princesses and princes.
Mostly princesses.
we only seem to hire women. I don't know what's going on here.
I'm sorry.
Dave and it's a ream.
I think it's more of a slightly feminine vibe of a company.
But yes, so so you get them to flourish,
Yep.
you help them and you develop them there. And Rowena's, like you said, has been in every part of the business, and she's every time she's evolved and become a better version. Rowena is one of our key longer running employees from the Philippines, and she's been with us for over 4 years now. And when she first started with us, it was on a typical low-level VA role. And now, I'm pretty sure she could run our business. Took 4 years, but I'm pretty sure she could run it.
Well, I think the thing that is different is that there's a lot of pressure, and a lot of mindset stuff that you have to overcome to be able to run a business. So I think there's I'm not sure that Rowena would want the pressure.
No.
But anyway, we've kind of derailed ourselves slightly going down the team track. So that's I think that's a good overview of the general different stages of the people who will be listening to this.
Yes, true.
So, okay, with that in mind, come back to the initial question is, when is it time to change your strategy, we would call your business model?
Okay, so when is it actually time? Because obviously we've shifted recently. So I would say first thing is, we've covered it already, massive market shifts that change the fundamentals of what you're dealing with, such as massive interest rate change or market change. If you see phenomenal growth in your area in values, maybe that will kill something in the deal.
Maybe having also hit a certain objective, because I feel like sometimes people are like wanting to hit a certain level of cash flow, and then once they get to a certain level of cash flow, actually it becomes more that they're interested in chunks of cash for other things. So I think once you've kind of achieved a certain objective, or you've got to a certain point,
personal objectives,
but want that, making sure that the thing that you are going to be putting less attention on can maintain itself.
Yes. What about opportunities? So I guess if you have gotten the business to a phase where it is taking less of your time and you are finding yourself able to have a bit more freedom, then you can flex to opportunities, right? You can say, I'll shift business model and take up that opportunity there. Maybe start another business alongside. But I right now, I am a lover of the concept of trading. Day trading really appeals to me, and I've done some of it in the past. I never nailed
during
it.
COVID, when no one left the house.
Yeah, when I was stuck in COVID in the house, I loved the idea of it. I really enjoyed doing it. But we run 3 businesses already, and once we came out of COVID, everything got much busier again, and I left it behind. I am so. That opportunity rears its head at me occasionally. You know, someone says, do you know what, this training program, this thing is really cool. It only takes 5 minutes a day. You can get, 2-3% a month. Just like things that excite me and that would excite anyone if you wanted to do trading.
So why aren't you doing it?
Well, that's the thing. I look at it and I say that is going to be a headspace drain right now, because we haven't got our businesses to a stage where I'm free enough to take advantage of that opportunity. And I just say, that's for later. And we have it on our strategical page, right? Strategy on a page is our was our original strategy framework, and we added to this what we used when we first started with strategy. We've created our own version of it, and we've added
the property strategy business plan.
There we go, and we've added a lovely little box, bottom right hand corner, called
Ideas box.
No, Ideas Bank.
Sorry, Ideas Bank.
Yeah, get it right.
Sorry, you said box.
So we created our Ideas Bank, and it's for this very reason. Something that excites you, something you want to do, something you can see in your future, but you do not have the capacity for it right now. Shove it in the Ideas Bank. Come to it when you've set things up properly and you've got a bit more freedom. So that would be a moment in time when you've got more freedom. You can say, okay, great, let's flex to a new opportunity. Right?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of the moments that you might actually change your strategy.
Yeah.
So should we talk about what you would do before deciding to change your strategy? A couple of problem-solving areas, because I feel like we've touched upon some. So, for example, I've chosen to do HMOs in X area, but it's not working. Can't make any deals work.
So it's usually a sourcing problem, right? On a very fundamental level, there are, when you choose to do a new model, I would say everyone should be doing, prior to going on this adventure, should be doing some sort of due diligence, area research, where they check the fundamentals of the area, and the fundamentals of your area have to stack up in a good way for you to say it's worth me spending time on this area. So if you're just going into any old area and trying to source deals without a good analyzer and without a good analysis process, then maybe you might not be able to find deals because you're in the wrong area. But if you've done a good bit of research and you've actually checked the fundamentals being what are the yields, like what's the average rent, average yield, average rent versus average purchase price, is it high enough for it to be a good cash flowing area? What's the how much uplift can I get? Am I going to be able to release cash from this deal? How much would, if I invest the money, how much is it likely to return at? And the way I would say with any bit of fundamentals, it's a matter of doing an example deal. It doesn't have to be, you just choose an average property that you think could work, and you basically see how would it stack up if you were to do that. So if it's an HMO, it's finding an average 3-bed house and seeing what price you would have to pay, and what are the room rents, and then you just do it as a deal on an analyzer. You say, does this work? Would it work? And if one of them works, and you get enough cash flow, you know the fundamentals are there. And then the second aspect is there enough stock? Is there enough stock? And for HMOs, I'd say generally there always is, because 3-bed houses to 4-bed houses is a very popular size.
Yeah, but also I feel like you can be like, this is my area that I'm investing in. An easy adjustment is just expand the area. Like add another postcode that's next door or something.
That's true.
So like it might be that you've been too specific with the area that you're considering. You have to just open it out a bit to just increase the.
But that would be a stock thing, right?
Yeah.
So with stock, I think So often, people think there isn't enough stock there, right?
Yeah.
And they start expanding the area. I've seen this quite a lot of times. Expand the area. There's just not enough stock. I'm like, but we checked the stock. Like, I looked at it with you. We looked at the stock. What's going on? And it's not the stock. The problem is they're killing deals. So this is where we come to an analysis concept, which is no area is perfect. And generally, you cannot work on a pessimistic mindset. You can't analyze property on a pessimistic mindset. But everyone's generally, if you're doing that, it's because you've got a fear-based approach. Investment in property requires a realism and realistic mindset. And
with an eye on what could go wrong.
The downside and the upside.
Yep.
There's always a downside and upside to investment. And then there is the middle ground. And realism, for me, my method, and it's different for everyone, right? Some people it's a gut instinct realism. For me, it comes down to percentages. Like, logically, when you look at a deal, you say, okay, what's the likelihood? What's the likelihood of me getting the thing I'm looking for, the thing I'm trying to achieve? So, for example, HMOs is quite a big one because people are going for commercial valuations a lot in HMOs. And some areas that's harder, some it's easier. What do you need to have in the property? And it can be quite a scary thing to step into if you've never done it before. But loads of people are making it work, and they're making it work very well. So if you've never done them before, the question to ask yourself is someone else making it work? Can it be done? Am I being told that it can be done? And therefore...
And who is, if someone is telling you that it can't be done...
Who is it?
Is that person got the authority to tell you that it can't be done?
Making a judgment call as to what is your percentage chance, in theory, of it working versus not? Because what I often see is a perspective where someone focuses on the downside. There's a small chance it might not work, and therefore it doesn't work in their minds, right? But that's all of property. That's everything. Yeah, of course you could get a bad valuer who doesn't give you a good commercial val, who gives you a bad yield. You can get a bad valuer who gives you a down val on a bricks and mortar. It's not going to stop you buying a property and trying to get a revaluation. So this thing of just like realism and not always trying to, say it can't have any downside is a killer of deals. And quite often I think people are looking for the perfect thing.
And I think this is for us, like we did it. We went through a period of time like killing that part of that distraction phase. We were also being too pessimistic on stuff because we didn't have the confidence.
Yeah.
One of the things that changed off the back of that time was we analysed now on best, likely and worst case scenario, which means you can dump your little ideas for how bad it could be in the worst case, dream in the best case, and then find the middle ground between the two. That really was a big changer for us.
It was a game changer. If you're just doing one analysis, you kind of always want to do you're like, but it could be this.
I might as well put that in. Yes.
Or I might have to spend a bit more on the build than I'm thinking, so I'll just put another 10k on, and then you end up with this picture where everything is the slightly negative version, and then of course it doesn't work.
Why am I only getting 4% return on this deal?
But that's not how it goes. It's not. Anyway, so I'd say that at that phase, stock is a big thing. So if there's not enough stock, first thing is to make sure you're not being too pessimistic. Also make sure you're not being too perfectionist in the type of deal you're after, and that you're not, and then the last thing is a mindset thing. Make sure you're going for no. So if you're looking at values and saying, oh, well, the asking price is 200k, it's not working at 200k. Well, the first question is, what is it working at? Is it working at 190, 180, 170? Where would it work? And if it's 150, doesn't matter.
There.
Put the offer in. Because if you're looking at it, it's 150, they're never going to accept that. I won't bother, move on to the next one. Again, you're just throwing away opportunity. You've got to just shove in the offers, and then you get to a numbers game. And the best
And you've just got to find a good way to do that so that you don't annoy people. So you've got to build the relationship, you've got to position it right, which is a whole other conversation.
So those are the 4 things I'd say at that point. And then only then, once you've assessed all of those, you say, okay, maybe I need to extend my area. It's either extend the area, or do I need another sourcing method, such as direct-to-vendor marketing? So that's the problem to be solved there, and that's a pivot. Sorry, that was a bit of a teaching rant.
It was a little rant, wasn't it?
Sorry, guys.
You see, he has them as well. They just come out in different areas where we spend more time having these conversations. So, and this is great. So should we just summarise the key?
I think you should summarise the key. That's your thing.
All right, okay. So here goes. So most people want to change their business model too soon.
Yeah.
So you should stay with it longer than you feel comfortable staying with it. Really, you only want to change your model once you have maybe achieved your objective maybe a certain cash flow, and there's a new model that you want to bring in, but on the caveat that that existing model can keep going without your constant headspace and involvement. The main reasons that people flop too soon into a new model are that they're sabotaging the sourcing by being maybe too pessimistic, not having enough different sourcing methods, being too perfectionist in exactly how perfect the deal needs to be, or maybe have too small an area.
Or they're excited by other things and they're bored by what they're trying to achieve, or it seems too hard work and they think something else is going to be easier, or shiny penny syndrome, where something else something else rears its head as super exciting to them, and they're like, "Oh, screw this! That looks exciting. I'll go do that."
So, a final thought from each of us then. So, my final thought.
Oh, you've got one. Go for it.
Is we've seen all the models. We've tried to do most of them ourselves, and if we haven't done them to a great extent, we have mentored someone who is doing it to a large extent. And they are all just as amazing and just as shit as each other. There is no perfect model, and if you move on to something else, there will be other challenges which hack you off just as much as the challenges with your current model. So don't think that there is an easier, quicker answer to what you're already doing. The easier, quicker answer to what you're already doing is to solve the actual problems that are presenting themselves and stick with it long enough to make it pay you like it deserves to pay you for all the hours that you've put in. Because every single time that you move to something new, you've got to pay your entrance fee again, and it will take you, for most people, a good 12 to 18 months to get that moving forwards.
Great. I mean, that pretty much covered everything. I'm just going to add 2 things to it, because you actually covered it. I kept on thinking, oh, that'll be my point. And then you said it. Oh, that'll be my point. And then you did it.
Well, telepathy.
No, the only thing I'd add to that is if the fundamentals work, making sure the fundamentals work is should be your first step, but it might be worth going back and checking. If the fundamentals work, then you should stick with it. Then it's a problem to overcome. But if the fundamentals have stopped working because some major thing has changed, then maybe it's time to change. That'd be it, really.
So, in summary, focus, stop moaning about it, and solve the actual problem that presents itself, because there is a simpler path through than starting something new. Well, that was fun. I hope you enjoyed listening to that as much fun as we had recording it. If you're interested to know more about how we mentor others in their strategies and how to scale up and do more deals, if you're looking for some support in that area, then you can check out our Dealmaker Accelerator program by going to property-strategy.com/DMA. And next week on the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast, you're going to be joined by myself and Dom, and we're talking about when it's not the right thing to just keep pushing hard to grow your business, and when it's better to look for an alternative route forward that is easier and more fun. So we'll see you same time next week for that.